Welcome to the review of the Bard's Tale Trilogy. The Bard's Tale Trilogy was released in 3 stages. It is a remake or remaster of the Bard's Tale Part 1, 2, and 3. It was created by InXile Entertainment in conjunction with Chrome Studios doing development. When you choose Start New Game from the main menu, you're presented with a nice little animation of which volume you want to choose, 1, 2, or 3. You're also then given the option to go into Legacy options. Here, there's all kinds of settings to choose exactly how you want to play it. Do you want to play it like the old days, or do you want to play with some improvements that get rid of some of the tediousness? So after choosing the Legacy mode options, or just going with the default options, you're presented with a little story, a little description of the game, and then it starts. I really like how the game gives you the base story as soon as you begin. The older Bard's Tales didn't do this type of thing, so you had to rely on the manuals. That's one of the things that makes this remake so good, is right off the bat you can jump in and start playing with minimal knowledge about the game. So the first thing to do is to create your party. You can choose from a wide variety of races, and of course up to 8 classes. Also, they made a little improvement where it shows the dice rolling as an animation on the right side, which is neat. And the other really nice thing is you can hit the escape key to go back and change your character class without having to go through everything again. The creators did a fantastic job of balancing keeping true to the original games versus removing some of the tediousness. They really did a fantastic job, and I'll explain more of that later. But as you get the roles you want, you just type in the name of the character, and you keep doing this until you achieve as many as you want. One thing that is different about this is they've made it seamless so that features that were in Bard's Tale 2 and 3 by default go all the way back to Bard's Tale 1. And one thing that you'll note is there's 7 character slots. So in the original Bard's Tale, there was only 6 character slots plus a special slot toward the top. Well, now you can make as many or as few characters as you want, and then add monsters or NPCs to your party. Another really cool thing about the character creation process is it shows you all the different portraits and pictures in the game. So you can finally make a character that looks like a monster if you really want to. That's a fantastic feature. Here we're going to have a bard who looks like a ninja. Another really cool feature is they've finally implemented male and female. And they've included all kinds of new female portraits that of course didn't exist when the original games were created. There is no effect on your attributes or playability based on the sex, but it does give your party more of a real feeling to it since you can choose male or female. Since this is only a review and it's not a strategy guide, I'm not going to go through all the details on all the different races and classes, but they all do have advantages and disadvantages, just like the original games. One trait that I really like about the Bard's Tale Trilogy is you have this adventure guild where there's a roster and you can remove characters from your party and leave them there and go train with some other party members and then pick up older ones later. So it gives you a wide variety of options throughout different points in the game. Sometimes you may want to have a bard in your party because there's a critical moment in the game where you need one, or sometimes you may want to have an empty slot for some NPCs. So once your party's created, you exit, and right away you're presented with the option of having a quick tutorial. And this is a fantastic addition to the game. No need to go into the manual just to get basic options. You can just read the instructions here and be off and running. You can also use just the mouse or just the keyboard for pretty much every command, which is fantastic because you'll be fighting a lot of monsters in this game, and so being able to use the keyboard exclusively will really speed up the process. But if you're just trying to take your time, then you can sit back and use the mouse. So right away you'll also note that there's some snowflakes falling. You see snow on the ground. Here we're using the mouse to actually move instead of the keyboard. But it feels like a real town in a real world. This is a big improvement over the original Bard's Tale. If you right-click on the graphic window, you can actually rotate the camera around a little bit based on the position you're sitting. So that right there shows you this is a true three-dimensional world. While the camera is set at pretty much a fixed position as you travel, it is cool to note that you can do that. Sometimes in dungeons it's useful to see if there's a door on the right side or the left side, when otherwise you can't see it. But as I was saying earlier, the original Bard's Tale, the whole story is you're locked in this town and you can't leave it because of giant snowdrifts. Well, they have really achieved that feel now with the remastered version. You can hear the sound of the wind blowing in the background. You can see fog and swirls of mist. Excellent job with the environment. Just like the original, there's a real-time aspect to this game, where when you're just sitting there doing nothing, enemies can come along and attack you or want to join your party. The background music of the bard instruments is also fantastic. Another great improvement is all the various backdrops and graphics. The originals were very limited with what they would display, but the tile set in the remake is fantastic. Here in Manger's Tower, you can actually see animations of little creatures appearing and disappearing right before your eyes. Really helps to make it feel like you're there. Take a look at this area. Nice, cool lava-looking effects. And listen to this ice dungeon, the drips and cracks. What a great job. There's also some beautiful scenery outside. It's a nice little touch with these flowers and butterflies. Such an improvement over the originals. And now it feels like a real town. Here we're looking at this tower, and as you rotate the camera you can see how high up it goes. And as we back away from it and turn around, you can actually see it in the background. Well done, InXile, well done. In the daytime, you regenerate spell points, and if you watch the slots at the bottom right corner, you'll actually see the background flash a purplish color to show the regeneration. That's a nice little touch. And here it shows us, when we look at the bards, how many songs we have left, which is also a cool touch. The way bards replenish their music is by going to the tavern and having a nice drink. But as you can hear, depending on which bard song you play, which gives different magical powers, it actually plays a different song as well. And if that ain't enough, you can actually change the musical instrument type, like going from a harp type to a horn, and it changes the sound. What a cool feature. Like the original, there are little animated icons when you cast adventure spells, but one improvement is you can hover over them and it'll tell you how much time left, in addition to what type of spell is cast. Also, when it becomes nighttime, you hear a howl sound, and then some shops will close, like here we can't get into Garth's at night. That's a nice touch. You can enter the Adventurers Guild, and when you exit it becomes daytime. But the nighttime feel is really cool. Look at these effects. Roscoe's, incidentally, is still open at night. You can cast a light spell at nighttime to light up the area. So those familiar with the originals know that Garth's is the equipment shop. He sells all kinds of different things, from weapons and armor to musical instruments and arrows. So it has a nice category where it breaks it down into item types. And a really cool touch in this game is you can hover over an item and it'll tell you information about it. Like the minimum damage, max damage, who can equip it. It even compares it to what you currently have equipped, so you know what the difference is. So on the left side is the item name, on the right side is the price. And if you can equip it, it'll be black. If you can't equip it or use it, then it shows up as red. Also, like the originals, Garth will keep items that you sell. In fact, it'll even show you how many charges that item still has on it. Now, there is an option in Legacy mode that you can enable where he can buy any item and will keep it in the shop even if it didn't have the max charges. But that option has to be enabled. By default, he'll only keep items that are fully charged. So here's Garth in Bard's Tale Volume 2. As you can see, he's put on a little weight and he's gained a beard, and well, I'm not sure if that's the same Garth. Maybe that's just a worker. Here I'm showing how you can sell your items, and there's basically a big party inventory by default, so you don't have to go into each character, which is really nice. So here's Roscoe's Energy Emporium, which was in the original. It allows you to recharge spell points on your characters. You could either do one at a time, or you can tell to recharge all of the characters. Once again, helps with the tediousness of the game. Roscoe can also identify items of specific types that you have not identified yet, and it'll tell you all kinds of details about it. Here's Roscoe in Bard's Tale 2, his picture changed. And also there's a temple, which is of utmost importance in this game. The temple is where you get healed of pretty much any kind of condition, including conditions that you cannot cure in Bard's Tale Volume 1 or 2, like the old condition or withered condition. Also, the chant that they do may remind you of something. I'll let you decide that. But early on in the game, this is where you're going to be spending almost all of your money. They have cut back the difficulty level a little bit by default if you don't play Legacy mode, but that's a good thing in my opinion. Okay, and we also have the Taverns. The Taverns, of course, existed in all three of the Bard's Tales, and this is where you order drinks for your bard so that he can get his voice back. And there's also another hidden secret trick in the first volume in one of the taverns that I'm sure almost all of you know about. You can bribe the barkeep to get some tips, which are usually pretty useless, but every once in a while there is something important. You can also buy a wineskin, including in Volume 1. The wineskin allows you to keep alcohol with you as you travel. There's also a bank that exists in all three volumes. And here you can deposit gold and items. The reason why you'd want to deposit gold is because there's a certain spell in this game where you can return to the Adventure Guild and you lose all your gold. So if you have it in the bank, you won't lose it. The reason why you'd want to deposit items is because your inventory volume is limited. There's also a blackjack table, which I thought was an interesting feature. I did not find this very useful, but pretty darn cool that there's a mini game built in. Here we can bet up to 1,000 maximum. And we play blackjack. It's a nice touch that the cards show some of the monsters in the game. Player wins. Okay, so let's get to what this game is mostly about, and that's combat. So first we'll talk about melee. Melee range is for the first 4 characters. They have the ability to attack anything that is 10 feet in front of them. Anything else has either got to be a ranged attack or a spell. The rogue also has the ability to hide, and by hiding they can then each round move 10 feet closer toward enemies. But range is one of the most important aspects of this game for coming up with strategy and how to fight things. Various spells and types of weapons have different ranges. So this game is all about math and figuring out the optimal way to deal with the various monsters. One of the improvements you're going to note is you can see little animations as monsters get either electrocuted or hit with fire, slashed with swords. That's a nice touch. And of course the sound effects they make as they get injured or they attack you. The person being attacked is the one shown in the picture. As you can see there, one of my characters got hit. So as I was mentioning earlier, ranged attacks can be used by various classes, and it's especially good for the hunter because the hunter class has the ability to do critical hits, even with ranged attacks. So you can throw a low damage weapon like a boomerang and end up killing a really strong monster. A huge improvement in this game is the casting ability. So you can type in the code to a spell, or you can type in part of a phrase of the spell, and the menu will actually get limited based on what you're typing. You can also hover over and it'll show you what the spell does. Another fantastic feature. Here we hidden shadows, and you can note toward the bottom right there, slip is showing to be hidden so that we know that they're hiding in shadows. And here our entire party got stunned by a spell. So you see the stun ability and it tells you we can't really do anything here. Also, just for those that aren't familiar with Bard's Tale, the maximum range an enemy can appear is 90 feet. If you're fighting a ridiculous number of enemies, you can really help get rid of the tedium by just holding on the space bar and it'll fly through the messages. That's a fantastic feature. As I mentioned earlier, the game does a fantastic job of staying true to the original. As you saw there was a stone statue of an ogre, and that's how the original did it. And once you attack them, they come to life. Once you've killed all the enemies, you're typically given a chance to open a chest. Not always, but usually. So you can open it unchecked and take a chance of being hit by some trap. Here we jumped out of the way. And you're presented with the amount of golden experience you got for combat. Sometimes you might want to cast the Trap Zap spell, which automatically opens it. And then you can also have a rogue try to disarm it, and depending on what level, they have a good chance. The other thing a rogue can do is identify items, which is really important in Bard's Tale 3, the third volume, because the third one has no shop. That's right, there's no shop in the third one. Fair warning for anybody that plays through the game. And that's not InXile's fault, that's the original Bard's Tale 3. It had no shop. One of my favorite features of the Bard's Tale series is how monsters can get into your party. There's a lot of times where you'll just be wandering around in a dungeon and then all of a sudden a monster will want to join the party. You could either allow it, fight it, or leave it alone. If your party's full, of course, there's not much you can do about that. But once you do get them into your party, you can inspect them and it'll tell you some information about them. Here our mage just cast Mithril Might on her own party, which is cool. This Battle Lord has critical hit ability, and This guy has the ability to do a lot of damage plus poison. Here we have a Drain Dragon that can breathe massive damage up to 70 feet. Another way you can get monsters in your party is the Baylor Spellbind spell, one of the best spells in the game. You can cast it on pretty much any enemy, and it will force them into your party, as long as you have an empty slot. Here we got a Yeti in our party. You can even force in some of the unique monsters, such as here we got Fanscar in our party. That's a lot of fun, and Oscon as well. The Bard's Tale series also has a lot of summon spells. You can get some really cool creatures as well. There are a few mandatory NPCs you have to get into your party at some point in the games, but once again, that's how the original games were. So as you kill monsters, of course you get experience, because this is a role-playing game. But it shows you how much experience you have and how much you need for the next level when you inspect a character. And once you reach that, if you notice at the bottom, there's a little yellow arrow next to the name, which shows you they're ready to be leveled up. So you go to the review board and say who wants to advance, and you're presented with what they achieve. You'll get special abilities like maybe increase your critical hit if you're a hunter. Rogues may get a bonus to their hide and shadows. Casters will get extra spell points and things like that. The attributes that level up are random. And for spellcasters, it'll actually show another little symbol next to their name when they're ready to achieve the next spell levels. And then of course we have to pay for that. The cool thing is you can hover over the spells right there on the menu and it'll tell you information about it. And of course you're going to pay for it once you have the money. I don't think anybody would not get the next spell level. Spellcasters have the ability to change class, and then you'll get the new spells for that class. You can change once you reach the 3rd level spells of a given class, but I'd recommend waiting. Here you can see the same graphics are basically redone for some of the ones that were in Bard's Tale 1, which is nice. It still has its funny comedy, like Manger was here. Here we have a monster reformatory. So they haven't changed the actual game at all, except for a few hidden areas that are bonuses, which I'm not going to spoil. You get clues on the walls in different dungeons. There's little messages. Here's a sign saying there's stairs ahead, and hey, wait a minute, there's no stairs there. Magic mouths are still in the game. A lot of times they'll either tell you something or they want you to solve a riddle. You have to tell them something. And sometimes they make fun of you as you answer incorrectly. I can imagine Michael Cranford, the original designer, envisioning something like this if he would have had the technology. Ah, the stasis chamber. There's a lot of mystery in the games, where once you've played through them, you remember a lot of it, but the first time through is a lot of fun. Now you can see darkness zones in front of you if you have a special spell that'll reveal it. So as you can see, that black cloud, if I step on that, it's going to turn the graphics dark. Or here we can see the spinner in front of us that'll twist the party around as you move. Pretty cool addition to the game. Once again, I can only see it because I have a special spell cast. Or here there's some damage zones in front of me that I can see. Yeah, the visual animations and cues in this game, based on the spells you have cast, is fantastic. Here there's a trap in front of us, so we can cast the Trap Zap spell. which incidentally can hit 3 in a row. It can go up to 30 feet. It can even be done in the darkness and through walls. So let's move on to loading the game. So of course you can save and load the game, and it gives you as many slots as you want. It actually will allow you to name the game, keeps track of where you were, and then it tells you the time and how long you've been playing the game. Here you can see that it took me about 80 hours to play through the 3 volumes. What a fantastic load game mechanism. So here we just loaded a game that was toward the end with my level 119 characters. It even includes the original cloth map that you can access digitally in the game. And one of the best improvements to relieve the tediousness is the mini-map and the auto-map in the journal. This thing is absolutely fantastic. As you move around, it starts to clear up and you can see where you've stepped and what's in front of you. So it has a vision area that it'll show down a hall. And as you step on tiles, they'll turn dark gray. There's even a transparent mini-map you can enable as an overlay. You can see it there in the bottom right of the graphic area. Makes it for speedy dungeon navigation. If there's something that teleports you to another spot on the map, you see the screen flicker or wave a little bit, and then you can cast the Scry Sight spell to see where you've teleported, and it draws a line to it. It's fantastic. You can see if there's something special nearby as well by hovering over with the mouse, and it tells you what's at that position. Here we're in an area that says something odd, and once again the mini-map records it for you. No more breaking out of graph paper. Here we're getting our spell points drained. As you can see, this makes these games so much more playable compared to the original. And one of the things that was the bane of all Bard's Tale players was the spinner, which now shows up also on the minimap, helping tremendously when trying to navigate these dungeons. It'll also keep track of the stairs. Incidentally, stairs or portals are the only ways to go up and down in a dungeon, without the teleport, of course. You can go up and down portals if you have the levitate spell enabled. And earlier, as I was talking about the magic mouths and some of the things they say or clues they give, those will also show up on the mini-map. In addition, it'll tell you where you fought set encounters. Sometimes it tells you how many of the monsters you fought. I just can't say enough about how good this mini-map is. Helps tremendously as well against the darkness. You can see the dark looking shades of gray on the mini-map here as we walk through. You can just keep bumping into walls until you make it all the way through. If you're outside, it'll show little tree icons where the trees are. And one of the best features, once you do get the teleport spell, you can choose who's going to cast it, and then you can even go up or down, depending on if you're in a tower or dungeon, and teleport straight to the entrance and then get out quickly. Some places are protected magically so that you can't teleport inside them. That's the same as the original Bard's Tales. The teleport spell also is very useful to teleport around and grind against enemies if you know there's a large group somewhere. Sometimes you'll run into anti-magic zones, or you just don't have the compass spell. So you'll show up as a little circle and you won't know what direction you're facing. Here we're actually able to see the fuzziness and the wave effects of the anti-magic zone because we used a special item that does not get dispelled. And that's one thing I would mention for anyone playing this game. Spells do get dispelled in anti-magic zones, but if you use an item that casts the same spell, the effects will remain in place. So that's a useful tip for you there. On the minimap, you can flip back and forth and go through previous dungeons and different levels in the same dungeon. So that's a huge help. Okay, so let's talk about inventory a little bit. So each party member has their own inventory. And if you go with the new version and the defaults, you have what's called a party inventory. And all the items basically that aren't equipped get stacked there. And when I say stacked, I mean literally stacked. You can actually use the stack option on things like arrows and items that have quantity. Sometimes you'll run across a mandatory item that you have to have in your party and your inventory's full. So the game will actually let you drop some other item to pick it up. Here you can see that red item means that we cannot drop that because it's critical to completing the game. So that's a nice feature they implemented. Also, the game has an in-game manual where you can read through everything about the game, all the instructions, get information about the classes and races, let you strategize. Just the controls in this game alone are super smooth. Scroll bars are smooth, the graphics refresh super quickly. Very well done. Another really cool feature is they have something called the Bestiary, where you can go in and look at all the monsters that you've run across. Whether you fought them or fled, they will still show up in the Bestiary. But as you kill more and more of them, information begins to be displayed here. If you hover over, it tells you how many kills you need of a specific monster in order to obtain that information. And sometimes if they use a special ability or cast a spell, that also will reveal information about it. But it is just fantastic that it keeps track of all this for you, and you can go back and look and see all the various attributes about a monster. And if you're in combat, it defaults to showing only the monsters that are in the current battle. You can go toward the top and click on one of the other tabs and view the monsters on either the specific map you're on, or you can just see all of them. In addition, there's a stats area in the game that shows you all kinds of things about how long you've played, how many things you've killed, how many turns you've taken. It's just fantastic being able to go back and look through all this. So before I wrap this review up, there's a few other things I want to talk about. First, on the main menu, the options. You have quite a few graphics options here. Of course, you can set the resolution. You can change 3D view gamma. You can say whether or not you want it to be full screen or windowed. I have it windowed just because I do live streams of the game and it's much easier to record that way. You can control whether there's shadows, grass displayed. You can turn music down or up. Same with sound effects. And then we have gameplay. You can control the text scroll speed, which incidentally, if you didn't notice already, actually literally scrolls. You see it going up and curling as the text is displayed. Then there's various things about like pausing the background if you Alt-Tab to a different window, the party inventory divider, all kinds of cool features. If you play in windowed mode, it does adapt well to resizing the window. Here I'm resizing it, and as you can see, the controls are scaling, and they'll even start to position differently based on the size of the window. And the infamous dork ring is back. Only this time, if you use it, it actually does something. You dork. We have the What-A-Dealers and Wizard of Iz back from the originals. What was Michael Cranford thinking with those names? Look at this guy. His name's Wera. He's picking up a tree, and somehow we have to fight this guy. Oh, we critically hit him. Okay, he's dead. Critical hits are overpowered in the game, by the way. There's some tongue-in-cheek type humor and some other things that I found kind of funny. And again, all this is in the original. They have not changed the feel of the game. They've just gotten rid of tediousness, made quality of life improvements, made the environment sound a lot better, all kinds of fantastic things. Okay, so once you've completed Volume 1, you're presented with an option in the Adventure Guild to transfer or start Volume 2. You can either do a full power transfer, moderate, or a full reset. So I did full power transfer here, and basically you get to keep all items, your levels, and everything. And then it has this little scene that's played out. Helps with the transition. And then Volume 2 begins. I just love the seamlessness of the games. They could not have done this any better with the seamless nature. Once again, you're presented with the base story of the game and what you're going to have to do. And then you're going to be off and running. The only bad thing is you don't get to keep your NPCs or monsters that were in your party. This time, I'm going to show you a transfer of a full reset. And here you can see my items are gone and you're back at level 1. So once you complete Volume 2, once again you go back to your Adventure Guild and you see begin Volume 3. This time we'll do a moderate transfer. Shows a cutscene here. I skipped it for the sake of the review. And here we go. When we look at the party now, start at level 33. So that's what the developers thought was a fair moderate transfer. You have all your items and then they put you back at level 33. Now there's a few spoilers up here, so just in case you don't want to see this, you may want to stop watching the review. But in Volume 3, Scarab Bray's destroyed. That's why there's no shop. And Roscoe's not here either. But luckily enough, there's a storage area where any items we had deposited in the bank will show up there. So anything that you were planning on buying back from Garth, you can kiss it goodbye. There's cool futuristic technology type things. Here we're killing something that obviously is made by some mechanical dwarf geniuses. You'll run into time warps. Here we're in the city of Troy. And you'll fight applicable enemies. Even Berlin. I think this speaks for itself as to what this is. Critically hit with a boomerang. That's got to be embarrassing for that jerk. So in closing, what did I think about the Bard's Tale trilogy? Well, based on my comments, it should be pretty obvious that I really enjoyed this. I can't believe how good of a job InXile has done with this. And Chrome Studios, of course, they're the ones that actually did the development. But they stayed true to the original Bard's Tales. They kept the portraits the same. Even the music's the same. They just enhanced everything. They got rid of tediousness. They put in a mini-map, an auto-map. They did add a few new areas and features to the game that didn't exist, but I didn't want to give any of that away. But it really feels like a real city environment and world now. It doesn't feel like we're just walking off in the middle of nowhere having to use our imagination. The sound in the background and the world to explore feels real. So I hope you've enjoyed this review of the Bard's Tale trilogy. I am going to be showing the ending to the game after the rating. So as soon as you see the rating, if you don't want to see the ending to this game, I'd recommend stopping after that. So once again, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you next time.